Welcome to Curious Airlines Flight 21. If you'd like to escape during this flight, the exits are over there, and over there.
And now's your chance.
Yeah, and if you need a gas mask, which I know it's not gas, is it? If you need some oxygen. Yeah, I don't want to gas you. You can find it somewhere above your seat.
You're flying on a TWAT.
Yeah.
Oh, TWAT.
Yeah.
Hello. I am Lisa.
I'm Jamie.
In case you didn't know.
I'm Danielle, for anybody watching us for the first time around, and those are who have been
never
following
been here before. Welcome to the Madhouse.
And I missed last week.
Danielle was abducted by aliens.
It was okay, so I was able to listen to most of it. It was very entertaining.
She didn't see it though. She didn't see the quad thing.
I didn't see it till after the fact. No, I watched the next day. I think it was. It was quite interesting.
She was like parachuting.
I'm still quite disappointed that Danielle wasn't there for the quad thing.
Yep, she was skydiving.
Because I would have loved to have seen what colour she turned when I put that on.
Oh my gosh. You guys uncover the craziest stuff.
I'll always wonder for the rest of my life what colour Danielle Alvis turned when she saw that picture for the
Maybe
first
she's
time.
closely related to the platypus. That's why.
No.
Well, you're trying to say that Danielle's got a quad penis? Is that what you're trying?
No, but I'm interested what the counterpart, the female, must look like compared to that.
I was thinking that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, if you don't know what we're talking about, you need to go back and watch what we did last week, which was our episode 2 of Down the Rabbit Hole, where we looked at weird animals, and boy, were they weird.
They were very weird, and like I said, I'm almost glad I wasn't here for that.
I'm devastated that you weren't here.
Well, so, I'm sure there will be plenty of opportunities to go through stuff like that again.
Yeah, as you may have noticed from the title, if you actually bother to read it, but some people don't bother to read it. This is about D.B. Cooper, although it's not about D.B. Cooper because D.B. Cooper never actually existed. His name was Dan Cooper, but we put it D.B. Cooper because of a drought. Episode 21, Dan Cooper. People will be like, who the hell is that? But, they got it wrong. Whether it was on purpose, we'll find out.
Yeah.
And the hijacking of Flight 305 way back in 1971.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, just a twinkle in my daddy's eye.
Good old 70s. Well, I was more than a twinkle. I was here on Earth, but I was a wee one.
Were you a twinkle?
Oh, no, that sounds really touching. Twinkle.
Yeah, I just made that word up and it sounds weird.
So this gets really interesting. Yep, here we go.
I actually thought this was going to be like, because I've wrote episodes thinking it's going to be a reasonable episode, and 3 hours later we're struggling to get finished. So I thought, what's going to just be a normal length episode? Oh, I know, we'll do DB Cooper, but then as you start going into it, it's probably going to be quite long. Whether that's because it should be quite long or because I just write too much and waffle on, we'll find out. This is the plane ticket, which says Dan Cooper because that's the name he put on his plane ticket. He never actually put DB Cooper. That we'll find out later why it became DB Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
And shall we get started?
Please.
Mm-hmm. Right. So at approximately 2 p.m. on November the 24th, 1971, which, if you're not American and you don't realise, that is the day before Thanksgiving. A man wearing what has been described as multiple colours of suit. Yeah. Some people say he was wearing a black suit. Some people say he was wearing a brown suit. I've even seen one person say that it was red. So he was wearing a suit.
Any colour.
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard reddish brown more often than not. So we'll just...
He was wearing a suit anyway, and he was carrying a black briefcase or a black attaché case, if you want to be posh about it, and a brown paper bag, which isn't posh at all. And he approached the counter of Northwest Orient Airlines at Portland International Airport, paying, obviously, as you can see for the ticket, $20 in cash, which I thought was quite expensive for 1971, but according to Danielle, it's about $120 today, which is quite cheap. He bought a one-way ticket on Flight 305, which was a 30-minute trip north to SeaTac, which again, if not familiar with American Airlines and whatever, that's Seattle Tacoma International Airport.
Right.
So the man, as you can see for the ticket, gave his name as Dan Cooper, and upon boarding the aircraft at approximately 2:30 p.m., he went straight to the back row of the plane and he took seat 18E. He ordered a drink which consisted of bourbon and a 7-Up. And he just sat there, and at 2:58 p.m. the flight took off, and it was carrying a crew of 6 and 37 passengers. As the plane was taken off, Dan Cooper, handed a note to the stewardess, Florence Schnaffner. I think that's how you say it. I don't actually care. That's how I'm going to say it. So, and I've got a picture of Florence Schnaffner. There we go. There she is.
That's the most flattering picture you could find of her.
Well, that was it.
She looks very surprised.
She's in shock. She's been hijacked.
Okay.
So this is Florence Schnaffner, and she assumed that it was a businessman giving her his phone number, obviously that happened quite a lot. So she just shoved it in her handbag.
She must have thought a lot of herself.
That's a purse. Shoved it in her handbag / purse. And obviously he was like, what the fuck? Yeah. Excuse me, miss. So he leans towards her and he whispered, Miss, you'd better read that note. I have a bomb. Shock horror.
So needless to say, being that this was 1971, not only you didn't need identification to buy a ticket because his license would not have matched the ticket.
Walked up to the desk, just gave any old name.
And you can bring anything on board, like a bomb.
Didn't check his luggage. Off you go. Jamie, what happened next?
Florence then opened the note, and written in it with capital letters with a felt tip pen, it read, Miss, I have a bomb in my briefcase and I want you to sit by me.
Yeah. I would see if I'd read that. I'd be like, I'm not fucking sitting by him.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
She must have thought, great, I should have phoned in sick today.
But she did. She went and sat by him. I wouldn't have done.
She then returned the note to him, and as instructor sat beside him and quietly asked to see the bomb. At which point he opened the briefcase slightly, and she saw 2 rows consisting of 4 red cylinders, which she assumed to be dynamite, surrounded by wires and a large cylindrical. Battery. A round
battery, everybody, that Jamie can't say.
Cylindrical. There you go, cylindrical. Once he had closed the briefcase, he asked her to write down his demands, which she did. She was then instructed to take his demands to the cockpit to inform the flight crew.
See, this bit to me, everything else seems very organised as we go on. Why didn't you do this prior? Why didn't you have it all ready? You already had this note ready.
Maybe he was nervous.
Good point.
Yeah, he seemed to have everything else ready, but...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Upon reaching the cockpit, she gave the demands to Captain William A. Scott, who then directed her to remain in the cockpit for the remainder of the flight and take notes of the events as they unfolded.
That's the captain.
Yeah.
Is that a flattering enough picture for you, Danielle?
What?
Yeah.
Is that a flattering picture of the captain?
No.
Oh, well, whatever.
Yeah, he then contacted Northwest Flight Operations in Minnesota and relayed Cooper's demands. They were that he wanted $200,000 in negotiable American currency, placed in a knapsack, as well as 2 front parachutes and 2 back parachutes.
Yeah, I didn't even know you had front and back parachutes, but apparently, yes, you do.
He wanted these by 5 p.m. By requesting 2 sets of parachutes, the implication was that Cooper was intended to take a hostage, which was supposed to discourage them from supplying faulty equipment.
Which we'll get to later.
Yeah. That they may not necessarily...
they might not give a shit.
Give shit about that, yeah.
Yeah, so with Schnaffner now in the cockpit, flight attendant Tina Mucklow, which I believe we have a picture of her too.
We do. And this might be flattering. Are you ready? Is that a flattering picture?
Sultry, they'll go for it, sure.
Right. I was taking screenshots.
So this was another flight attendant, and Tina Mucklow took over as liaison between Cooper and the cockpit, and she sat beside him. He then made additional demands upon landing in Seattle. And the fuel trucks must meet the plane and all passengers must remain seated while she brought the money aboard. And he said he would release the passengers after he had the money. The last items brought aboard would be the 4 parachutes. Now, Captain Scott informed Seattle-Tacoma Airport Air Traffic Control of the situation, who contacted local police and then the FBI. The passengers were told that their arrival in Seattle would be delayed because of a minor mechanical difficulty. Now, at this point, I would be thinking they had to be onto something other than a minor mechanical difficulty. But
and why is all these stewardesses sitting beside the bloke in the back?
Yeah. So Donald Nyrup, he was the president of Northwest Orient at the time.
And that's him. Is
Okay.
that flattering?
Not everybody has to have a flattering picture. Very professional looking. We'll put it that. Very professional. So
He's got a red suit on, a brown suit on, or a black.
Yeah, we'll never know. We'll
Never
never
know.
know. He authorized the payment of the ransom and ordered all employees to cooperate, of course, to or with the hijacker and comply with his demands.
But we don't negotiate with terrorists.
Yeah, what's up with that? Isn't that like the number one thing?
Oh, he wants 200. Okay, then just give it to him and do what he says. Yeah.
Do not negotiate with terrorists, but in this case, I guess they did. So for approximately 2 hours, which was normally what, a 30-minute flight, for approximately 2 hours, Flight 305 circled I think it's Puget Sound or
Puget Sound.
Puget Sound,
Yeah.
to give Seattle police and the FBI sufficient time to assemble, the ransom money and the parachutes that he had asked for, and also to mobilize emergency personnel.
Right.
So they stalled a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So during the flight from Portland to Seattle, Cooper demanded that Mucklow, who's the flight attendant, remained by his side at all times. She said later that he appeared familiar with the local terrain. Apparently, while looking out the window, he remarked, "It looks like Tacoma down there." I think if you know what flight you're getting, you'd do whatever. But as the aircraft flew above it, so he recognised Tacoma. But I mean, I've never been to certain places, but if I'd bought a flight to, say, Michigan, I'd be like, and it's coming into land, oh, that's Michigan down there. I would just assume, but whatever. I don't know whether they're taking too much into that. He also correctly noted that McCord Air Force Base was a 20-minute drive from SeaTac Airport. She later described the hijacker's demeanour. Cooper was not nervous, she said. He seemed rather nice and was not cruel or nasty, which is a complete stark contradiction to what FBI twat says later.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that as well, because he's a twat. While the plane circled Seattle, it's like that, it's going right.
That's a noise thing.
That's a noise airplanes make.
1971.
So Mucklow chatted with Cooper and asked why he picked Northwest Airlines to hijack. He laughed. He went, hee 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 hee, and he replied, "It's not because I have a grudge against your airlines, plural, more than one. It's just because I have a grudge." And then he explained that that particular flight just happened to suit his needs. He asked where she was from, and she answered that she was originally from Pennsylvania. Which is not Transylvania, Jamie.
Yeah, where Dracula
doesn't come from there. But it was living at Minneapolis at the time. Cooper responded that Minnesota was a bizarre response, a very nice country. I think he's just trying to act stupid at that stage.
Yeah.
A lot of their things were quite intelligent. I think he's just trying to throw things off. Anyway, she asked where he was from, and like he was going to bloody tell you, Tina, but he became upset and refused to answer. He also asked if she smoked and offered her a cigarette. She replied that she had quit, but accepted the cigarette anyway, probably because she was shitting her knickers. Just my opinion.
Or just being polite, I guess. But
if I'd stopped smoking and somebody showed me a device in a suitcase while I was like in the air in an airplane and a little tiny tin can, I'd be wanting a fag as well.
Yeah, but then would you be worried about having a fag? Because you'd be like, that could be a bomb and I'm smoking.
And also,
just
like, can we just comment on the fact that they're just randomly just smoking, chain smoking on an airplane?
Mm-hmm.
It was okay. It was okay then.
Yeah.
Just wandered on with your little brown paper bag and your bum, chain smoking.
Chain smoking away.
FBI records note Cooper briefly spoke to an unidentified passenger while the plane maintained a holding pattern over Seattle. In his interview with FBI agents, passenger George Labatinier, or something like that.
Just George.
Yeah, George. I'm going to call him
I
George.
think it says Le Bessonnier.
Yeah.
George the Frenchman.
He said he visited the restaurant directly behind Cooper on several occasions.
And obviously, what was wrong with George? Because it was like it was supposed to be a half-hour flight. It ended up being 2 hours.
Well, he was shitting himself as well.
They didn't know though. Several occasions.
He had to know something was up, though.
It might be.
How many times can you possibly go to the airline toilet? And I mean, you try to avoid the little airplane toilet.
Well, some people can't hold.
Some people are like that.
But several times he went to the toilet.
Yeah. After one visit, George said the path to his seat was blocked by a passenger wearing a cowboy hat. Questioning Mucklow about supposed mechanical issues delaying them, George said Cooper was initially amused by the interaction.
Is that true?
That is true.
Terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Jamie.
Sorry, it just Kelly said things and I was like, what?
And then he became irritated and told the man to return to his seat. But the cowboy ignored Cooper and continued to question her. Questioner. George claimed he eventually persuaded the cowboy to return to his seat. Mucklow's version of the interaction differed from George's.
It didn't just differ, it was completely bloody.
Well,
there was nothing in common whatsoever.
Yeah. She said the passenger approached her and asked for a sports magazine to read because he was bored. She and the passenger moved to an area directly behind Cooper, where the passenger and herself looked for magazines. The passenger took a copy of the New Yorker and returned to his seat. Is a New Yorker a sports magazine? Because he said about sports before. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think so.
When Mucklow returned to his seat with Cooper, he said, "If that's a Sky Marshal, I don't want any more of that." Despite his brief interaction with Cooper, the cowboy was not interviewed by the FBI and was never identified.
Which is weird. They never identified him and never even spoke. You'd think they would have spoke to every single bloody passenger on that plane. Every single one of them. But no. Why bother?
No reason to think otherwise.
Like somebody just hijacked.
And why was the cowboy flying? He got a horse. They normally have horses.
Oh,
you can be a cowboy without a horse.
Yeah, exactly.
James.
So then, as we get to the ransom money, so the FBI agents used several banks in the Seattle area to assemble the ransom. And the money, which was 10,000 unmarked $20 bills, most of which had serial numbers beginning with the letter L, that was indicating issuance by the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco. And apparently, they took the time to photograph on microfilm each one of the bills.
Bullshit!
In order to document the serial numbers.
Yeah, in 2 hours they took 10,000 photographs.
Yeah, now I said I guess it would depend on how many people were doing the,
I'm not
the
saying
picture
that they
taking.
didn't have 10,000 photographs, but were they ready beforehand?
Good point.
Was it all planned, maybe?
But allegedly, that's what they claim that they did. So Cooper, he rejected the military issue parachutes offered by McCord Air Force Base personnel, and he demanded 4 civilian parachutes with manually operated ripcords. Now, Seattle police obtained the 2 front reserve parachutes from a local skydiving school and the 2 back main parachutes from a local stunt pilot, and that's what was issued to him.
Right. Around 5:24 p.m., Captain Scott was informed that the parachutes had been delivered to the airport, and he then obviously notified Cooper that they would be landing soon, and they did. They landed at 5:46 p.m. With Cooper's permission, Scott parked the aircraft on a partially lit runway away from the main terminal. Cooper demanded that only one representative of the airline approach the plane with both the parachutes and the money, and that the only entrance and exit would be through the aircraft's front door via the mobile air stairs. Northwest Orient Seattle Operations Manager Al Lee was designated to be the courier, and to avoid the possibility that Cooper mistook his airline costume. It's not a costume, is it? It's a uniform. He's not like going to a fancy dress party.
I'm the bottom.
To avoid the possibility that Cooper mistook what he was wearing, his work clothes, as like being law enforcement clothes. He put some civilian clothes on, which obviously he's a civilian, so all these clothes are civilian clothes, but whatever. That's what it said on the website, and I couldn't think of another word for it, so we're just going to call them civilian clothes. And with the passengers remaining seated, a ground crew attached a mobile staircase, and per Cooper's directive, Mucklow, who's the air hostess woman, exited the aircraft through the front door, and she retrieved the ransom money. When she returned, she carried the money bag past all the seated passengers all the way to the back row where Cooper was sat. And the passengers are about to be thinking at this stage, something's going on here.
This isn't mechanical.
Cooper then agreed to release the passengers as they debarked, which is actually a word. I thought it was disembarked, but is that just for a boat?
Debark.
So as they debarked, Cooper inspected the money. In an attempt to break the tension, apparently, Mucklow jokingly asked Cooper if she could have some of the money, as you do. Whatever. And he agreed, and he handed her a packet of bills.
That was nice of her.
Apparently, according to Mucklow, she immediately returned the money and explained that accepting gratuities was against airline policy. And it just sounds all a bit contrived to me, this part of the story, but that's partly what she said happened. But she also said that he tried to tip her and the other flight attendants earlier in the flight, even though as soon as he took off, he'd handed her a note. So when was he trying to tip them, and what was he? I don't know. But she refused that as well because it's against company policy.
But he was a very nice, polite hijacker.
Yeah, I'm hijacking you, but here's a tip.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It is unbelievable. Anyway, with the passengers safely debarked, as we now know as a word.
That's a word, yeah.
Only Cooper and the 6 crew members remained on board. In accordance with Cooper's demands, Mucklow made 3 trips outside the aircraft to retrieve the parachutes, which she brought to him in the rear of the plane. While Mucklow brought aboard the parachutes, Schaffner asked Cooper if she could retrieve her purse, stored in the compartment right behind his seat. Cooper agreed and told her, "I won't bite you. No, I won't bite you, but, I've got a bomb, I've got a grenade, I've got a gun, But anyway, Flight attendant Alice Hancock then asked Cooper if the flight attendants could leave, to which Cooper replied, "Whatever you girls would like." So Hancock and Schaffner debarked. They were like, "You're fucking getting out of here." He said we can go.
Yeah, bollocks to this. See you later.
When Mucklow brought the final parachute to Cooper, she gave him printed instructions for using the parachutes, but Cooper said he didn't need them.
Nope.
But see, the thing is that obviously they use that as though he was already trained and well versed in parachutes, but men don't read instructions. Yeah, we know. It's just a fucking parachute.
This is true.
You just put it on
with some string.
This is true, but if you're jumping out of an airplane, I would hope that you would want to know what you're doing.
It's just you just
no, not so much.
Pull the lever.
Just pull the lever and hope. Yeah. A problem with the refueling process caused a delay.
Allegedly, but I think they done it on purpose.
So a second truck and then a third were brought to the aircraft to complete the refueling. Yeah, there's something suspect.
They were buying time.
During the delay, Mucklow said Cooper complained the money was delivered in a cloth bag instead of a knapsack, as he had directed. And now he had to improvise a new way to transport the money. Using a pocket knife, which, along with the bomb and the gun and everything else, which apparently...
Did he have a gun? No, he didn't have a gun.
Did he not?
He had a bomb and a knife, though.
Right. He may or may not have had a gun. I may have completely made that up. I think I know where I'm coming with that, and that comes later. So, spoiler alert. But anyway, so you can just take anything you like, as we just said.
Yeah, you can just walk onto an aeroplane with a lighter, because obviously he's got a lighter, he's got a bomb, he's got a knife.
But he had to improvise now, right?
He's got a little brown paper bag.
Multicoloured suit.
A suit that changes colour.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, so he got this little pen knife out, or knife. I don't know if it says pen knife. I don't know.
Pocket knife.
He started to...
pocket knife.
Yeah, he started to basically cut a bait with the canopy of one of the reserve parachutes and stuffed some of the money into the empty parachute
He made
bag.
his own he made his own knapsack.
He did make a knapsack.
I know it's not called a knapsack, but I'm just going to pronounce it knapsack.
Knapsack. Yeah.
But it still wasn't ideal, because obviously what he was looking for when we say knapsack, he wanted to be able to put something around him as opposed to having to hold on to it because of jumping out of a plane.
Yeah.
You want to be able to have as many both hands free. And so he had to,
give him the proper bag.
They didn't. So he had to quickly come up with something, didn't he?
He's basically stuffed some of the money into a parachute bag.
Yeah.
What happened next, Danielle?
Well, what happened next was an FAA official requested a face-to-face meeting with Cooper aboard the aircraft. But Cooper denied the request. And
Of course he did. He could have said,
yeah. Anybody else want to come and meet me?
Yeah. And then he became impatient, which before they were saying how, nice and composed and everything was. Well, at this point, he became impatient. Well, first of all, they brought him the freaking wrong bag. So that probably pissed him.
Put him the wrong bag. They can't get the fuel in.
Yeah. So
Allegedly.
he became impatient, saying, this shouldn't take so long. And, quote, let's get the show on the road, end quote. He then gave the cockpit crew his flight plan and directives, a southeast course toward Mexico City at the minimum airspeed possible without stalling the aircraft, approximately 100 knots, which is 185 kilometers or 115 miles per hour, at a maximum 10,000 foot or 3,000 meter altitude. Now, this would have been because of the trail.
It's very specific.
Yeah, because if you look, which we're going to see, I think, later on the map, it was a mountainous region.
Yeah.
So if he was below that, that would have caused some issues.
And
so
they do argue that he never actually gave them a flight path, but he did, because this specific height and the 15-degree thing, there was only one flight path that you could possibly take.
Getting to that, on top of the altitude that he specified, he also specified that the landing gear remain deployed and that the wing flaps must be lowered 15 degrees. And
I wouldn't even know it was a thing.
And that the cabin must remain unpressurized. So very specific instructions, and not things that your average passenger citizen would know to be able to request such things.
I agree with that.
But the argument through the years has been that he didn't give a particular flight path, but he did, because that was, no matter where they were going, the fact that he gave that altitude and that wing flap thing at 15 degrees meant that because of the mountainous region, they can only take one route.
Right.
So he knew exactly what route they'd have to take by giving those specifications.
Exactly. So First Officer William Radizak informs Cooper that this configuration limited the aircraft's range to about 1,000 miles or 1,600 kilometers. So a second refueling would be necessary before entering Mexico. And Cooper and the crew discussed the options and agreed on Reno Tahoe International Airport as the refueling stop. But here, Cooper further directed the aircraft take off with the rear exit door open and its air stair extended, which very unusual. So Northwest Home Office objected, and obviously, and said, that's not safe.
Yeah, don't mind the explosive.
Don't mind the fact you've got a bomb on your lap, but no.
But Cooper was very confident. And Cooper's like, he countered by saying, it can be done, do it. And did not argue the point, and said he would lower the staircase once they were airborne. Now, he demanded Mucklow remain aboard to assist with the operation. And so that's what happened. That's what took place.
So, at around 7:40 p.m., Flight 305 took off, and it only had Cooper, Mucklow, Captain Scott, First Officer Ratazak, and Flight Engineer Harold E. Anderson aboard. 2 F-106 fighters from McLeod Air Force Base and a Lockheed T-33 trainer diverted from an unrelated National Guard mission. Air National Guard mission. Is that different? I don't know. Followed the 727. All three jets maintained what they call an S flight pattern. Don't know what that means, but that's what they followed. They just mean that they're going like that. I don't know. In order to stay behind the slow-moving 727 and out of Cooper's view. After takeoff, Cooper told Mucklow to lower the aft staircase, and she told him, and the flight crew that she feared being sucked out of the aircraft. Of course she did. The flight crew suggested that she comes to the cockpit to retrieve an emergency rope with which she could tie herself to a seat, because that's going to make you feel better about doing something like that, isn't it?
Well, she wouldn't feel like she was going to get sucked out of there.
Yeah, but Cooper rejected that suggestion, stating that he didn't want her going up front or the flight crew coming back into the cabin. She continued to express her fear to him, and she asked him if he could cut some of the cord for one of the parachutes to create a safety line for her so that she could do it. So he's just like, oh, you know what? Just whatever, love. You're freaking out. I'll do it myself. Yeah. So he told her to go to the cockpit, and he instructed her specifically to close the curtain partition between the coach and first class section as she went, and to not return. So,
he was annoyed at her.
He's like, you know what?
But the thing is, even if she had that piece of string and she got sucked out, that would be worse because she'd be dangling in the sky, wouldn't she?
Yeah, but she'd rather be dangling than dropping to the ground.
I don't know, because you don't know what's going to happen when you get it over and done with, don't it?
Yeah.
Before we go any further, I mean, just out of curiosity, and maybe I don't know the viewers that are watching, did you guys know about this over in the UK? Was this like a big story over there too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So before she left and went to the cockpit as instructed, she begged him, please take the bomb with you. And he responded that he would either disarm it or take it with him. As she walked to the cockpit, she turned to close a curtain partition as she'd been instructed to do so, and she later claimed that she saw Cooper standing in the aisle tying what appeared to be the money bag around his waist.
So he's the first person to ever invent the bum bag, everybody.
Yeah, invented a bum bag.
That was Dan Cooper.
So from takeoff, so the time that they took off from the airport to the point where she entered the cockpit, this had only been 4 or 5 minutes into the flight. And for the rest of the flight to Reno, which was actually 3 hours long, so for about 2 hours and 55 minutes, Mucklow remained in the cockpit, and she was the last person to see Dan Cooper. So just bear that in mind, that there's like 2 hours and 55 minutes and nobody knows what's going on in the rest of the plane because they're all in the cockpit.
Right, so around 8 p.m. a cockpit warning light flashed. Excuse me. Indicating the aft staircase had been deployed. The pilot used the cabin intercom to ask Cooper if he needed assistance. Cooper gave a one-word reply to this. No.
No, I didn't.
This would be his last communication.
And just to quickly butt in there, something I forgot to write. The fact that the doors opened and they've got the warning light in the cockpit that is opened, and they've asked him if he needed assistance, even though he's just given one word reply, no, he's given a reply there, and it's later stated by the FBI that they believe that as soon as he opened the door, he was sucked out of the plane, which is impossible because he replied to them after the door.
Unless it was more like,
so,
no!
No! Yeah, so he was definitely on the plane after the door opened. But the FBI will later state that they assumed as soon as he opened the door, he got sucked out of the plane.
Yeah.
Yeah, not so much.
And that didn't happen.
Apparently.
Sorry, Jamie.
The crew's ears popped from the drop in the cabin air pressure from the stairs being opened. Indeed. At approximately 8:13 p.m., it's not quite approximately at 8:13, I suppose, but the aircraft's tail section suddenly pitched upward, forcing the pilots to trim and return the aircraft to level flight. In his interview with the FBI, co-pilot Bill Ratazak, I'll say it quick so it sounds right, said the sudden upward pitch occurred while the flight was near the suburbs of north of Portland. And he said Poland. They would have been lost there. Yeah.
No wonder they didn't find him. He was in Poland.
He was in Poland the whole time.
Wrong country.
With the aft cabin door open and the staircase deployed, the flight crew remained in the cockpit. Unsure if Cooper was still aboard, Mucklow used the cabin intercom again to inform Cooper they were approaching Reno, and if he needed to raise the stairs of the plane so that it could land safely. She repeated her request as the pilots made the final approach to land, but neither Marklow nor the flight crew received any reply from the hijacker. So he's either being very quiet or he's gone.
He's either not there or he's just ignoring them because I get on his nerves.
3 hours after takeoff at 11:02 p.m., with the aft staircase still deployed, Flight 305 landed at Reno Tahoe International Airport. FBI agents, state troopers, sheriff's deputies, and Reno police established a perimeter around the aircraft, but fearing the hijacker and the bomb were still aboard, they didn't approach the plane. At some point, it is unclear how long they waited. The crew left the cockpit and Captain Scott searched the cabin, confirmed there was that Cooper was no longer aboard, and after 30 minutes search, an FBI bomb squad was then sent in to make sure the cabin was safe. So, yeah.
And just quickly got a little picture of some of the headlines from the time, if I can actually find the right button.
Also, later on, after, like towards the end of the of our presentation, our show here today, we'll have a recording of the actual interview that took place afterwards with the captain.
Yeah.
Just
weird.
Really weird.
So there's some of the hijacker disappears with 200,000. Bomber hijacks Portland jet flight, blah, 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 whatever. They're just all assuming that he's leaped for the plane at this point now, but I'm not convinced. That's just me, though. Anyway,
Will we
spoiler
ever
alert.
know?
I'm not convinced.
I know you're not. So upon examining the aircraft, 66 latent fingerprints were discovered, along with Cooper's black clip-on tie and tie clip. And 2 of the 4 parachutes, one of which had been opened and the shroud lines had been cut from the canopy. And I believe that's when he was making his own
bomb bag.
Yeah. So FBI agents interviewed passengers and airline staff.
Apart from the cowboy who they'd never identified.
Yeah, they didn't interview all, which again.
So is that the only passenger they missed?
Maybe they are partial to people who aren't cowboys and they're prejudiced. I don't know. But anyway, they interviewed some passengers and airline staff in Portland, Reno, and Seattle and developed a series of composite sketches. And then it gets really interesting from here.
Yeah.
So before we continue, we're going to go over some of these sketches because really, it's really weird on how they handled this and the way they gave okays to move on to the next sketch. So.
Right, so I'm now going to put them on the screen as we talk about them so you can see what we're talking about.
So an initial sketch was made from witness descriptions on the day after the hijacking, and this was not.
Somebody's left.
Somebody's left.
Yeah. As you can see, these are very similar looking pictures.
Not so much, but you can see the real fuzzy one there was the initial sketch, and that wasn't released till the day after the hijacking. The first sketch to be publicly released was titled Composite A, the more clear one there. And it was released on November 29th. So 5 days after?
Yeah. And not any rush.
And it looked vastly different, as you can see from the initial sketch.
No, so, Danielle, they're clearly the same person, Danielle.
Oh,
I don't know what you're on about, love.
According to the witnesses, the Composite A sketch was jokingly known as Bing Crosby, which maybe a little bit, but anyway, it was known as the Bing Crosby sketch and was not accurate to be a likeness of Cooper, in their opinion.
The composite saying that looks nothing like him.
Yeah, the Composite A sketch said witnesses showed a young man with a narrow face and did not resemble Cooper or capture his disinterested, let's get over with this kind of look. Mm-hmm. Flight attendant Florence Schnaffner repeatedly told the FBI that the Composite A sketch was a very poor likeness of Cooper, and she didn't see it at all.
Mm-hmm. However, despite that, they
They
went and released it anyway. Here we go. That's a bulletin from the FBI. They're like, oh, we don't care if the witnesses are saying that looks nothing like him. Yeah. It's been 5 days. We better release it anyway. So here we go. And to continue, because there's more. There is more, and it gets even stupider.
Stupid.
Should we read a little bit of this first, or are you just not interested?
Can you read that though? Is that easy? Or...
I mean, it talks about his height was anywhere from
we've got
5.
race weight, sex male, age mid-40s, height 5'10" to 6 foot tall, weight 170 to 180 pounds, build average to well built, complexion olive, Latin appearance, medium smooth. I don't know what that means.
Smooth.
He's got a medium smooth complexion. Hair dark brown or black. Normal style, parted on the left, combed back. Sideburns, low ear level. Eyes possibly brown. During latter part of flight, he put on dark wraparound sunglasses with dark rims. Voice low, spoke intelligently. No particular accent, possibly from the Midwest section of the United States. Characteristics: heavy smoker of Raleigh filter tip cigarettes. Wearing apparel: black suit, which might have been brown or red, white shirt, narrow black tie, black dress suit, black rain type overcoat or dark top coat, dark briefcase or attaché case. Carried a paper bag 4 inches by 12 inches by 14 inches. Brown shoes.
It took a lot of time to measure.
If you have any information which might lead to the identity of this individual who looks nothing like the person that we're looking for, please contact your local FBI office as soon as possible. Thank you very much. So that's what their bulletin said.
We wonder why it remains a
Unsolved.
yeah, a mystery.
Anywho,
the jaw sizes have changed.
Yeah,
oh,
Kelly.
Kelly,
Kelly could
bear
be.
with us. We'll get to that.
Could be.
Right, after multiple eyewitnesses said composite A was not an accurate rendering, FBI artists developed a second composite sketch. Completed in August 1972, the second composite B sketch was intended to more accurately depict Cooper's age, skin tone, and face shape.
So they took the time out to make it. They concentrated.
Oh, but wait!
Plenty of time to create new ones.
I'm going to put this on the screen so that you can see.
Yeah, put it up on the screen while you read about it. So
as I'm talking, because you need to see.
Right.
I've not even started yet, but you can see where I'm going. Right.
Yeah.
So eyewitnesses, this is the one on the left, this is composite B, from the 2nd of August 1972. Eyewitnesses to whom composite B was shown said the sketch was more accurate than composite A, but that the composite B looked too angry or nasty. He looks too angry. One flight attendant said that the composite B sketch looked like a hoodlum. Hoodlum. Yeah, that's what she said. And she remembered Cooper as more refined in appearance. More importantly, the witnesses remarked that the composite B sketch depicted a man that was much older than Cooper. The first one looked younger, this one looks too old. And he had a lighter complexion. So, no, that's not him either. So, taking on board this criticism, they allegedly edited it and released a revised composite B, which is in the middle here, and it's exactly the fucking same. Apart from the little white highlights in his ear, but whatever. This was 3 months later, so it took them 3 months to edit that to that, and we're on the middle one. So 3 months work there. I mean, they worked really hard editing that because it looks completely bloody different, right? And it's now almost a year since the crime had been committed, and they've still not got
delaying much.
They've still not got a fucking accurate picture of what he looked like. But here we go. However, the witnesses were still like, it's not right. It's still not right. It still doesn't look quite like him. It's better.
I can see why they're saying that, though, because there's probably nothing like him. But,
they're saying it's better, but still no. So they went back to the drawing board, and it took them...
What, again?
Literally.
And it took them another 3 months to come out with final composite B, which is the other identical bloody sketch on the right. Because it's all the same picture.
It's just like they've used a sepia
all the same
filter.
There's slight differences. Obviously the coloring is
just
a
looks
little
like
bit
been smoking over that one a little bit.
This was released in February 1973, and of the new sketch, though, this is where it blows my mind. Of the one on the right, the final composite B, one flight attendant said that revised composite B was a very close resemblance to the hijacker.
Really?
But A and B wasn't.
Oh my god. Seriously.
And it's all the bloody same person. But whatever, right? Another flight attendant stated that the hijacker would be easily recognized from this sketch.
But not the other ones.
but not the other ones. Right.
Danielle, pull a face. I'll do it.
What?
Houston, we have a problem. Yeah.
Really?
It's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean,
Look at them.
You just gotta shake your head.
It's the same person.
it's the same.
And the same. That doesn't look nothing like him. That does. Oh my God, you've got it. Hit the nail on the head.
Yeah,
It's the same person.
Very
Very
subtle
little
differences
time. I mean,
with the
bloody
thing.
hell, it's been 3 months. Quick,
I'll just agree with them.
just
'cause
get the
they're-
know
yellow
what?
pencil out and put a
Yeah.
bit of yellow on his
They're
face.
probably got
It's-
to the stage. Look, they keep showing us this same bloody picture. Just agree with them and make them go away.
Yeah.
Lisa, it's still better than the next sketch.
Yeah.
Oh, Danielle,
Yeah.
you're spoiling it.
No,
Right.
I'm not spoiling it because people have to see it.
So
To believe
they're
it.
saying the hijacker would be easily recognised from this sketch, but not these two. So yeah, it's exactly the same. They've just put like a little bit of highlights in his hair. It's the same person.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, in April of 1973, or in 1973 now, the hijacking took place on Thanksgiving 1971. April 1973, the FBI concluded that the revised composite base sketch was the best likeness of Cooper they could develop.
Wow.
Because they put all these months of effort into all these sketches, allegedly.
Mhm.
And it should be considered to be the definitive sketch of Cooper. Now, just what Danielle was then talking about, there was another sketch which was created in 1988 by the Unsolved Mysteries program, and it
But
was
you think-
drawn.
You think
It was
artists would be
drawn by
better
the
at this point?
It was drawn by a person who's described as LA County Sheriff's Department sketch artist. I would use the term artist very loosely.
Maybe a piss artist.
I think that they might have been a child, but whatever. And this is drawn from the memory of Florence Schaffner. So she described Dan Cooper to LA County sketch artist. And that's what he drew, everybody.
All of a sudden, he's turned to Michael Barrymore, everybody. If you know who Michael Barrymore is in
I
America.
don't know, but I mean, look at the hairline is different and everything.
Completely.
So
It's just like, what's going on? What's going on?
was it Florence's recollection? Was it the pet? I mean, obviously the sketch artist wasn't it,
Yeah.
especially for a show like Unsolved Mysteries. You think that they would have
Well,
used?
especially the fact that he's working for the LA police and he's this nit. Is the crime rate?
Was he new?
Is the crime rate quite high in LA County in the 80s because their sketch artist was shit?
Well, he looks miserable.
To me, this just looks like nothing like.
Let's get this over with. He's got that. Let's get this over with.
Anyway, we need to get back to the investigation. We went on enough about these just ridiculous pictures.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. It reminds me, reminds me a little bit about the Madeleine McCann case, and they actually had a decent sketch that was made from witnesses the day of the crime, right after they described, and they had decent sketches of the people that were seen, and yet they
Oh,
waited about three years. There was a missing child, but they didn't.
Yeah, well, we'll get to
after
that
3
one.
years,
Yeah.
and we'll get to that as well at some point. Do Madeleine McCann.
Right. So the local police and the FBI agents immediately began questioning possible suspects. So here they go start questioning suspects, acting on the possibility the hijacker may have used his real name.
Yeah, because you're gonna
If you
commit a crime
Yeah.
and use your actual name.
Yeah. If anyone believes that, they need shooting or arresting themselves. Anyway, or the same alias in a previous crime, Portland police discovered and interviewed a Portland citizen named D.B. Cooper. So not any like the Dan thing, as they're gone with the DB, which isn't correct, is it? So
this bloke's
weird.
name is DB
whatever.
Cooper,
Yeah,
but they actually identified him while the plane was still in the air.
because they're so magical they are.
Ah.
The Portland Cooper had a minor police record, but was quickly eliminated as a suspect.
And would you like to know how he was limited as a suspect?
How was he eliminated?
Danielle knows, didn't you, Danielle?
How Cooper was eliminated as a
How
suspect?
DB Cooper was eliminated
Yes.
as a suspect.
They sent a trooper to this gentleman's home. They saw the name on the manifest, like Lisa said. Okay, so first of all, who's going to use the real name? They looked up in the area, any Coopers. They found a DB Cooper. They sent one trooper to this person's. This poor guy was sitting there watching TV while his house was being, raided. Like, hello.
Yeah.
So DB
The
Cooper.
crime is still in progress, and I'm in my house watching the telly.
Yeah. So that's not even the worst part. The worst part is the name stuck. They stuck with DB
Yes.
Cooper instead of Dan Cooper.
To this
Exactly.
day, his name is still associated.
However, because in this rush to meet the deadline, reporter James Long confused the man with the name used by the hijacker. United Press International Wire Service reporter Clyde Jabin, probably wrong, said it wrong there, republished Long's error, and other media sources also repeated the error. On and on ago, the hijacker pseudonym became D.B. Cooper. And this is still used indirectly to this day. And we used it today because we knew that if we didn't use it,
because if I wrote episode 21, Dan Cooper, you'd be like, who the hell's Dan Cooper?
Yeah, so remember, the hijacker themselves did not use D.B. Cooper, it was Dan Cooper. But this is where we came.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, due to the number of variables and parameters, precisely defining the area to search proved to be very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
The jet's airspeed estimate varied, of course, and the environmental conditions along the flight path varied with the aircraft's location and altitude. And only Cooper knew how long he stayed in free fall before pulling the ripcord.
If indeed he jumped off the plane at all.
If indeed. The Air Force F-106 pilots neither saw anyone jumping from the airline, nor did their radar detect a deployed parachute.
Dun,
Which
dun,
is weird.
dun.
That is weird. So, moreover, a black-clad individual jumping into the moonless night would be difficult to see, especially given the limited visibility, the cloud cover, and lack of ground lighting.
That's the kind of black suit, or no, he might have been a red-clad individual.
There's also, there's also some discrepancy on the weather by this.
Yeah, the FBI claims it was
The FBI is
stormy, but it wasn't.
It wasn't stormy. So the T-33 pilots did not make visual contact with the 727. On December 6, 1971, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover approved the use of an Air Force SR-71 Blackbird to retrace and photograph Flight 305's flight path and attempt to locate the items Cooper carried during this jump. The SR-71 made 5 flights to retrace Flight 305's route, but due to poor visibility, the photography attempts were unsuccessful. Now, in an experimental recreation, do you want to give your opinion now, or do you want me to go on?
Oh no, just it's very convenient that even though they spent millions of pounds on this investigation, they've apparently done these flights that probably cost a lot of money, but they ended up with no photos, so it was unsuccessful. Did they actually do it, or was it just all a ruse to maybe get some money?
Exactly.
Pretend you're spending money investigating, and you're taking it.
It's all very suspect, to say the least. And
I don't think they've done it.
In an experimental recreation, flying the same aircraft used in the hijacking in the same flight configuration, FBI agents pushed. I can't believe this.
It's so dangerous.
It is. They pushed a 200-pound or a 91-kilogram sled out of the open air stair and were able to reproduce the upward motion of the tail section and brief change in the cabin pressure described by the flight crew at 8:13 p.m.
I didn't give a shit if it landed on somebody on the ground.
Well, hopefully their drop zone, the target, was like...
They'd have blamed Santa Claus or something. Yeah, it's a sled. That's just Santa.
Yeah.
Sleigh sled. Yeah.
Initial extrapolations, is that extrapolations? Placed Cooper's landing zone within an area on the southernmost outreach of Mount St. Helens. Yeah. The outreach
of my mind and researching.
So this area would have been a few miles southeast of a town called Ariel, Washington, near Lake Merwin, an artificial lake formed by a dam on the Lewis River. Search efforts focused on Clark and Cowlitz counties, encompassing the terrain immediately south and north of the Lewis River in southwest Washington. Now, FBI agents and sheriff's deputies searched large areas of the heavily wooded terrain on foot and by helicopter. But who's to say they were in the right area given the flight path? But anyway, door-to-door searches of local farmhouses were also carried out. Other search parties ran patrol boats along Lake Merwin and Yale Lake, the reservoir immediately to its east. Neither Cooper nor any of the equipment he presumably carried was found.
Because that's the wrong place.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Where are we now? Right. Using fixed-wing aircraft and helicopters from the Oregon Army National Guard, the FBI coordinated an aerial search along the entire flight path. That is known as Vector 23 in US aviation terminology, but in Cooper literature, it's referred to as Vector 23, not Victor. And as we said earlier, this Vector 23, based on the specifications he gave for the height to fly at and the degrees of the flaps, was the only flight path they could have took.
Yeah.
And there is places that's nice and flat and open and
Yeah.
nice and easy to land if you parachute out a plane along that flight path, but they're looking in a heavily wooded area.
It was very dark.
Because that's the place to jump. Everybody.
Pitch black, middle of nowhere in the woods, because that's where you would jump
Mm-hmm.
if you planned meticulously.
Well, we know the FBI isn't all
Anyway.
that bright, don't we?
Oh, the FBI are rubbish, as we'll find out as we go on.
Rubbish.
Right, so where was I? I have no idea. Oh yeah, Vector 23. Although numerous broken treetops and several pieces of plastic and other objects that resembled parachute canopies were sighted and investigated, nothing relevant to the hijacking was found because they were in the wrong place. Shortly after the spring thaw in early 1972, teams of FBI agents, aided by some 200 soldiers from Fort Lewis, along with United States Air Force personnel, National Guardsmen, as well as civilian volunteers, conducted another thorough ground search of the Clark and Cowlitz counties for 18 days in March and 18 days in April. Obviously, they found nothing because they're in the wrong place. Electronic Explorations Company and Marine Salvage Film was used, and they got a submarine to search the 200-foot, that's 61-metre depths of Lake Merwin. Two local women during this time stumbled upon the skeleton of somebody in an abandoned structure in Clark County. Unfortunately, that was later identified to be the remains of a teenage girl called Barbara Ann Derry, who'd been abducted and murdered several weeks before. Ultimately, the extensive search and recovery operation uncovered no significant evidence, according to the FBI, which means they got nothing. They found nothing. Nothing!
Mm-hmm.
Based on early computer projections, now this is 1970s, so can you imagine the computer?
Computers. Yeah.
Like
Fill
taking
the
up
room.
a whole house, right? So based on an early computer projection produced for the FBI, Cooper's drop zone was first estimated to be between Ariel Dam to the north and the town of Battleground, Washington to the south. In March 1972, the FBI concluded their original calculations were incorrect.
Who would have thunk?
Yeah, this was after a joint investigation with Northwest Orient Airlines and the Air Force determined that Cooper probably jumped over the town of La Center, Washington.
Mm.
Spoiler alert, that might be wrong as well.
Probably. Later analysts indicated that the original landing zone estimate was inaccurate. Captain Scott, who was flying the aircraft manually because of Cooper's speed and altitude demands, later determined his flight path was farther east than initially thought. Additional data from a variety of sources, in particular Continental Airlines pilot Tom Bowen, who was flying 4 minutes behind Flight 305, indicated that the wind direction factored into drop zone calculations had been wrong. Possibly
Accidentally on purpose.
Possibly by as much as 80 degrees. This and other supplemental data suggested the actual drop zone was safe east of the original estimate, in the drainage area of Washougal River.
Danielle, how do you say it? You're American.
Washougal.
Is it Washougal?
Washougal.
I think it was Shugo. Yeah,
Washougal. FBI agent Ralph Himmelsbach.
Oh, right, Ralph. Remember this name, Ralph Himmelsbach.
Yeah.
We just call him, for the sake of Ralph Himmelstwat. Remember him. Remember him.
He wrote, I have to confess, if I was going to look for Cooper, I would head for the Washougal.
Washougal.
The Washougal Valley and its surroundings have been searched repeatedly in subsequent years. To date, no discoveries traceable of the hijacking have ever been reported. Some investigators have speculated that the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens could have obliterated anything remaining.
That's it.
The clues.
However, they did have 9 years. It was 9 years before it erupted.
That's what it was.
Exactly what happened. They were doing sketches in between.
Yeah, but busy drawing all those very, very different looking pictures.
In 2019, the FBI released a report indicating that about 3 hours after Cooper jumped, a burglary was reported at a small grocery store near Essen, Washington. An unincorporated community located within the calculated drop zone that Northwest Airlines presented to the FBI. The burglar was noted by the FBI to have taken only survival items such as beef jerky and gloves. Is that survival gear really? Because
beef jerky and gloves.
That sounds like a genuine thing. What like a truck would in the winter, a trucker comes through and go, "Yeah, I'll get some beef jerky and."
That's not survival stuff.
To me,
That's not survival
is like water, maybe something to make fire.
Yeah. Or if it was in an abundant
beef jerky's not going to be top of my mind.
No.
Especially like just one pair of gloves. Whatever. All right. So a month after the hijacking, the FBI distributed lists of the ransom serial. So a month later, they distributed lists of the ransom serial numbers to financial institutions like in casinos, racetracks, and other businesses that routinely conducted large cash transactions, and to law enforcement agencies around the world. It apparently took them less than 2 hours to collect and photograph each bill, but 4 weeks to distribute it. So the Northwest Orient offered a reward of 15% of the recovered money to a maximum of $25,000. So in early 1972, U.S. Attorney General John N. Mitchell released the serial numbers to the general public. 2 men used counterfeit $20 bills printed with Cooper's serial numbers to swindle $30,000 from a Newsweek reporter named Carl Fleming in exchange for an interview with a man that they falsely claimed was the hijacker.
Kelly, at the moment, you're actually doing a better job than
the FBI.
I know. Right?
Well,
so in early 1973, with the ransom money still missing, of course, the Oregon Journal republished the serial numbers and offered $1,000 to the first person to turn in a ransom bill to the newspaper or any FBI field office. In Seattle, the Post-Intelligence made a similar offer with a $5,000 reward, and the offers remained in effect until Thanksgiving of 1974. And though several near matches were reported, no genuine bills were found, of course.
Because the FBI already laundered it all.
In 1975, Northwest Orient's insurer, Global Indemnity Company, complied with an order from the Minnesota Supreme Court and paid the airlines $180,000 claim on the ransom money.
So obviously, I couldn't find any more information on that, but obviously they didn't want to pay it, so they thought there was something dodgy going on. Mm-hmm. But they ended up having to go to court and had to pay it.
Yeah. It's not just D.B. Cooper's money that seemed to be going missing or washing up in the water. Anyway.
Right. So now we're going to look at some of the evidence. And first up, we're going to look at this, which is his clip-on tie. So FBI agents found a black clip-on necktie in seat 18E, where Cooper had been seated. Attached to the tie was a gold tie clip with a circular mother-of-pearl setting in the center. The FBI determined the tie had been sold exclusively at JCPenney department stores, but was discontinued in 1968, so it's at least 3 years old. By late 2007, the FBI had built a partial DNA profile from samples found on Cooper's tie. However, they also acknowledged that no evidence actually linked Dan Cooper to the DNA, because obviously they've probably been mishandled and they don't know whose DNA it is.
You think?
Mm-hmm. So they've got 2 small samples and 1 larger sample, and they said it's difficult to draw firm conclusions from these samples because they could belong to anybody. They didn't say that, but I added that on. But they could belong to anybody. They also made public a file of previously unreleased evidence, including Cooper's plane ticket, composite sketches, the many, many, many very different composite sketches, fact sheets, and posted a request for information about his identification. In March 2009, a group of citizen sleuths. Citizen sleuths. That's quite difficult to say. Using GPS, satellite imagery, and other technologies that were unavailable back in 1971, began investigating components of the case. They were known as the Cooper Research Team, or CRT. They give themselves a little name, they've got a little club. The group included paleontologist Tom Kay. Now I'm just going to stop there for a second. Now, I do not know definitively who Dan Cooper was, but I do know he wasn't a fucking dinosaur. So why is a paleontologist getting involved? So we've got a paleontologist from the Burke Museum of Natural History, who's apparently going to be a big help in looking for a plane hijacker. So we've got him. We've got a scientific illustrator called Carol. Does that say abracadabra? I don't know.
No, it doesn't say abracadabra.
Carol Abrakazinskis, and a metallurgist called Alan Stone. So they've got a little nerdy group going on here with a dinosaur hunter, somebody that draws cartoons, and somebody that knows about metals. So although the CRT obtained little new information about the buried ransom money or Cooper's landing zone, they did find, analyse and identify hundreds of organic and metallic particles on Cooper's die. And I'm going to continue here because this was supposed to be Jamie's bit, but he can't say the words.
There's no
Oh
way.
my God. Well,
Yeah. So he's making me do it. Right, are you ready? There's words, everybody. Using electron microscopy, the CRT identified lycopodium spores. I think that's what they're called. The source of which was likely pharmaceutical. The team also find minute particles of unalloyed titanium on the tie, along with particles of bismuth, antimony, cerium, strontium sulfide,
I would have failed miserably.
aluminium, not aluminum, aluminium, and titanium antimony alloys. The metal and rare earth particles suggested Cooper may have worked for Boeing or another aeronautical engineering firm, or a chemical manufacturing plant, or a metal fabrication and production facility.
See, I could argue that because that might actually be a cheap-ass tie from China that's going for a really rough, cheap machine, and all the bits of metal flying off as it's being made. Yeah, so just me. Yeah.
The material with the most significance, explained Kay, was the unalloyed titanium. In the 1970s, the use of pure titanium was rare and would only be used in aircraft fabrication facilities or at chemical companies combining titanium and aluminium to store extremely corrosive substances. The cerium and strontium sulfide were used by Boeing's Supersonic Transport Development Project and by Portland factories in which cathode ray tubes were manufactured, such as Teledyne and Tektronix.
Mm-hmm.
Cooper, I don't even care if that's not what it says. Cooper researcher Eric, I can't even say Eric. I said all the words and I can't say Eric. Eric Ullis, his name's Eric Ullis, speculated the titanium antimony alloys are linked to REM crew titanium.
Sounds like Wolverine's claws.
A metals manufacturer and a Boeing contractor. And I need a drink. And now Jamie's going to continue on the next slide, which should have been Danielle's, but you ruined order.
Yeah, I do apologise, but you can see why.
Please take over, Jamie.
Yeah, anyway, hair samples and cigarette butts.
Do you call them cigarette butts?
Fag butts. Do you call them butts?
You call them butts?
Yeah, cigarette butts.
Because I know you don't call them fags.
No, we don't call them.
But no, they certainly do. they put some fags in evidence and stored them away for years.
There are plenty of things we don't say over here that you say over there.
No. FBI agents found 2 hair samples in Cooper's seat. A single strand of limb hair. What did he just say? Fucking arm hair.
Well, it could have been off his leg or his arm.
It could have been, yeah. Well,
You've actually got 4 limbs, Jamie, not just your
Right,
arm.
yeah, but if they found it on the seat, I suppose it could be. Yeah, anyway, continuing. And a single strand of brown Caucasian head hair on the headrest. The limb hair was destroyed after the FBI crime laboratory determined the sample lacked enough unique microscopic characteristics to be useful. So basically, they couldn't get nothing off it. However,
just destroy that. It's
the
only somebody's leg here.
Really, the bottom line here is they did. They just destroyed all.
Destroyed it all. Yeah.
It might not be like I don't know.
It may not be. Things do get destroyed when they test things if they're too small.
But they didn't test it. It's just like, oh, it's useless.
They just assumed. However, the FBI crime laboratory determined the head hair was suitable for future comparison and preserved the hair on a microscope slide. So they've kept that, maybe. During their attempts to build Cooper's DNA profile in 2002, the FBI discovered the hair sample had been lost.
No.
Oh no! How did we know this was coming, people?
Well, you mean they've lost something that's got DNA?
Yeah.
Oh my god!
It's like they don't want to
armrest ashtray of C18.
Oh, it's all right. They've got the fag butts. Sorry, they've got the cigarette butts, so it's fine. They've got DNA.
Yeah, not the fag butts.
Don't panic.
They've got the fag butts. So bring the wrong crowd to
They've
this
lost the
shit.
hair sample, but they've got all the cigarette butts, so they're going to have DNA. Thank God. Continue.
Yeah, they found 8 Raleigh filter tip cigarette butts. These were sent to the FBI crime laboratory to search for fingerprints. No, don't do it. Don't take them there. Put them anywhere else. Right. But investigators were unable to find fingerprints and returned the butts to the Las Vegas field office.
Oh, that's good then. At least we're going to find
so
out. We're going to find out, aren't we?
Yeah. In 1998, the FBI sought to extract DNA. Yes, we're going to find out. They're going to get the DNA from the cigarette butts, but discovered the butts had been destroyed while in the custody of the Las Vegas field office. Oh, you can't. What a surprise.
What are these people doing? What are they doing? What are they doing? Like, this is supposed to be the FBI. They're supposed to be good at this shit.
Yeah, like, we just discovered they can't
You'd
follow...
almost think they were doing it on fucking purpose, wouldn't you?
Exactly. They can't maintain evidence. They can't keep the story straight. They can't fucking draw. I mean, what can they do? I don't know.
They're good at messing things up.
If you were conspiracy theorist orientated, you might think it was all getting done on purpose.
Yeah.
No wonder they haven't solved this case.
So now we're going to move on to like the ransom money itself, right?
Yeah.
On February 10th of 1980, an 8-year-old boy by the name of Brian Ingram, there's Brian, he was vacationing with his family on the Columbia River at a beachfront known as Tina Bar. And it's about 9 miles or 15 kilometers downstream from Vancouver, Washington, and 20 miles or 32 kilometers southwest of Ariel, which, if you remember, was where they were originally looking for any kind of evidence. So as he raked the sandy riverbank to build a campfire, he uncovered 3 packets of the ransom cash, totaling around $5,800. Now, the bills had disintegrated from lengthy exposure to the elements, but they were still bundled in rubber bands. And FBI technicians confirmed that the money was indeed a portion of the ransom. 2 packets of $120 bills each, and a third packet of 90, all arranged in the same order as was given to Cooper. Now, the discovery launched several new rounds of conjecture and ultimately raised more questions than it answered, of course. Initial statements by investigators and scientific consultants were founded on the assumption that the bundles washed freely into the Columbia River from one of its many connecting tributaries. Mm-hmm. An Army Corps of Engineers hydrologist noted that the bills had disintegrated in a rounded fashion all around its edges and were matted together, indicating that they had been deposited by the river and by the action and currents of the river, as opposed to having been deliberately buried there. That conclusion, if correct, supported the hypothesis that Cooper had not landed near Lake Merwin, nor any tributary of the Lewis River, which feeds into the Columbia well downstream from Tina Bar. It also lent credence to supplemental speculations that the drop zone was Washougal River, which merges with the Columbia upstream from the discovery site in itself. So they were, obviously, we knew right from the get-go that Ariel was the wrong place to be looking anyway.
Mm-hmm. And you continue in the next bit when it's still the same.
Hmm?
You can continue because it's still the same bit.
Okay, I'll continue if I can see it. So the free-floating hypothesis presented difficulties. It did not explain the 10 bills that were missing from one packet, nor was there an explanation for how the three packets would have remained together after separating from the rest of the money. Physical evidence was incompatible with geological evidence. Now, Himmelsbach, the big FBI lead guy, he wrote...
Himmelsbach.
Himmelsbach. He wrote that free-floating bundles would have washed up on the bank within a couple of years of the hijacking. Otherwise, the rubber bands would have long since deteriorated.
He's an idiot, so don't listen to him.
Yeah. Well, he was wrong on a lot of things. So geological evidence suggested the bills arrived at Tina Bar after 1974.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the year...
3 years later?
The year of the Corps of Engineers dredging operation on that stretch of the river. So geologist Leonard Palmer of Portland State University found 2 distinct layers of sand and sediment between the clay deposited on the riverbank by the dredge and the sand layer in which the bills were buried, indicating that the bills arrived long after the dredging had been completed. Now, in late 2020, analysis of diatoms, which are diatoms like flowers or planted? I don't know. In the late 2020, I bet you Kelly.
I'll look up for you while you're reading.
Yeah. Analysis of diatoms found on the bills suggested that bundles found at Tina Bar were not submerged in the river or buried dry at the time of the hijack. Plankton? Okay. Only diatoms that bloom during springtime were found, which that's why I found that to be odd. Yeah, so only diatoms that bloomed during springtime were found, placing the date range that the money entered the water at least several months after the hijacking.
Dun, dun, dun. Not suspicious at all.
No. In 1986, after protracted negotiations, the recovered bills were divided equally between Brian Ingram, the lucky 8-year-old, and Northwest Orient's insurer, Royal Globe Insurance. The FBI retained 14 examples as evidence, so they say, which, given their history with the case, I would not be surprised if they lost these by now. Ingram then sold 15 of his bills at an auction in 2008 for about $37,000.
Oh. Somebody just brought fake money. That's not them. That's not that. Because that's all. Yeah.
Well, the Columbian River ransom money remains the only confirmed physical evidence from the hijacking found outside the aircraft as of this time.
Mm-hmm. The parachutes.
We shall see. That's right.
All right. During the hijacking,
Hey, what are you doing?
Yeah, let Lisa talk.
Oh, I do apologise. I thought it was my turn.
Now, reading it. The parachutes. As Jamie just said, during the hijacking, Cooper demanded and received 2 main chutes and 2 reserve chutes, as we've already established, which I didn't actually know that you got different kinds. I just thought parachute was a parachute.
Yeah.
The 2 reserve, which are front chutes, came from a local skydiving school, and the 2 main chutes were supplied by a local pilot called Norman Hayden. Eric Cossey, the parachute rigger who packed all 4 parachutes that were brought to Cooper, described the 2 main chutes as emergency bailout chutes, as opposed to sporting parachutes that skydivers would use. Cossey further described the main chutes as being like military chutes because they were rigged to open immediately upon the ripcord being pulled and were incapable of being steered.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that?
Is that right?
Remember that? This is the bloke who packed them telling you that they're incapable of being steered. So remember that. right? When the plane landed in Reno, FBI agents discovered 2 parachutes that Cooper had left behind. 1 reserve front parachute and 1 main back parachute. The reserve.
That's Lisa's second language coming through.
I was going to say reverse. The reserve parachute had been opened and 3 shroud lines had been cut out. But the main chute, that was obviously what he was using to make his little bum bag that Jamie talked about earlier. The unused main chute was described by FBI agents as a model NB6, Navy Backpack 6, and it's on display to this day at the Washington State Historical Museum. And I've got a little picture. That's it. It's a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be.
No comment.
It's not all about size.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Compact.
Of the 2 reserve front chutes that Cooper was given, one of them was an unusable. Let me just get so you can see my face for this, because it's like, what? One of them was an unusable training chute that was intended to be only used for classroom demonstrations, which is fucking mind-blowing, because they, at the time, thought he'd asked for 4 parachutes because he was taking a hostage, and yet they supplied him with a dummy chute.
Mm-hmm. But it was accident, wasn't
They
it?
claimed it was an accident.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
At the time, they claimed, they didn't. It was like in the rush. They didn't mean to do it. It was an accident. But we'll get to that later as well. So remember that. Remember, can't steer it. Accident. Remember that. Right. So one of dummy chute. They think he's taking a hostage. Anyway, according to Cossey, the reverse chute had a canopy inside of it that was sewn together so that skydiving students could get the feel of pulling a ripcord packed with a parachute without actually deploying it. So if you put this on and jumped out of a plane, you pull your thing, nothing happens because it's all sewn together inside.
Not going to work, is it?
Yeah. The non-functional reserve parachute was not found in the aircraft when it landed in Reno, leading FBI agents to speculate that Cooper was not an experienced parachutist, because someone with experience would have realised that this was a dummy chute. However,
even though they made the mistake,
or this is what they're assuming, but obviously they've not assumed this bit, or maybe, just maybe, if they'd actually listened to the interviews that they'd done with people, he cut everything outside and made it into a bag.
Yeah.
Because he said that
he recognised it was a useless one.
They gave him the wrong bag, so he made a bag out of one of them. Maybe that's what he done with that parachute, and he just didn't take it because it. But this is their conclusion as to why he didn't know what he's doing with parachutes, because he took the dummy one.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. Within days of the hijacking, it was revealed that neither of the parachute harnesses that he was given had the necessary D-rings required to attach a reserve parachute. Although Cooper lacked the ability to attach his dummy chute to his main harness as a reserve parachute, it was not found on the plane because he made it into a backpack. I don't even know what they're doing at this. What are they doing?
He obviously knew more about what he was doing than they were giving him credit for.
Yeah.
They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what
they're doing. Exactly.
So in November 1978, a deer hunter found 727's metal instruction placard for lowering the aft staircase. The placard was found near a logging road about 13. I don't know why I read 31. 13 miles, that's 21 kilometres, east of Castle Rock, Washington, which is north of Lake Merwin, where they were all looking, but it's still within the basic flight path.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that he jumped there, though. That just means that it fell out.
Maybe.
Strange. Curious. Right. The suspect profile. Now I can read, can't I? Yeah.
This gets interesting, though, because so many suspects were listed.
Mm.
Yeah. The suspect profile's stupid, though.
Well, it is, isn't it? Yeah. No wonder they got so many.
This is just one profile. This is the profile for 1973. It changes multiple times.
Go and buy all the information and everything that we've heard and what we see.
Anyway,
no
go on,
matter.
Jamie.
Yeah, in May 1973, the FBI internally released an 8-page suspect profile. The profile speculated that Cooper was a military-trained parachutist and not a sports skydiver because, in addition to his apparent comfort level with the military-style parachutes he was provided, his age would have made him an outlier in the sport of skydiving community.
He would have stuck out like a sore thumb.
They would have spotted him, apparently. One relevant of what colour suit he was wearing. The profile also speculated that Cooper was someone who exercised regularly due to comments made by multiple eyewitnesses regarding Cooper's athletic-looking frame despite his age. What the hell is going on?
He was buff.
So because he's like got an athletic build,
yeah,
he must work out because he's.
It's not like he's 96 or anything.
Yeah, he's like in his 40s.
All these people, would they really comment on everyone? I mean, I've heard go on a bus, I don't recognise it. Oh yeah, that guy was really athletic.
He must go to the gym.
Homosexual, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, they also felt he was not a heavy drinker or an alcoholic because the only drink he was served was quickly spilled and he never requested another. Well,
that's just jumping to conclusions.
Yeah, you might not. A, you might not bother. B, if he's nervous, he may not want to take a drink and. You know, might want them what.
Why is it relevant if he's an alcoholic anyway?
And if you pay for it, it might be expensive. I know. Well, anyway. The profile determined that an alcoholic would have likely been incapable of turning down further alcoholic beverages throughout the stressful and lengthy hijacking. By calculating the number of cigarettes he smoked throughout the hijacking, the FBI believed that he smoked around 1 pack of cigarettes a day.
I don't know how they can even determine that.
They're just making shit up now, isn't it?
So they realised, the stress may have caused him to drink but not smoke.
He's not going to smoke more while he's hijacking a plane than what he normally would.
I mean, you'd probably do both if you want.
Or just
one or the other.
What if he didn't smoke at all? That was part of his disguise.
Which it quite possibly could have been. Several of Cooper's mannerisms led the FBI to conclude that he was more intelligent than the common criminal, such as his vocabulary level, his proper use of aviation-related terminology, complete lack of profane language.
Excuse me, they changed later, and he says that he was just really foul-mouthed.
The ability to quickly adapt to various situations
as they arose,
as they arose. He was likely the type of person who would commit a crime without need or desire for a accomplice. I mean, basically, he didn't have no one helping him; he could do it by himself. I mean, the whole story so far is about one person. But
this is an 8-page document, and they've got nothing to say, and they're saying it too loud.
Yeah.
And just make it like.
I wonder if they took 3 months to write this.
Yeah.
Agents theorised.
He smokes a pack of cigarettes a day, but he's not an alcoholic. And
Agents theorised that Cooper took his alias from a popular French language Belgian comic series featuring the fictional hero Dan Cooper, a Royal Canadian Air Force test pilot who took part in numerous heroic adventures, including parachuting. So some guy in a comic book with Dan Cooper has done parachuting. One cover from the series reproduced the FBI, which was reproduced on the FBI's website, depicts test pilot Cooper speculate they had encountered them during a tour. So basically, they think he saw these.
I think he saw a comic book and copied it.
Well, I mean, I suppose he could have got his name, his alias
from
that.
The name from there. He could have got some aspects. I'll give him that. That is a possibility.
Or it could just be a common as fuck name.
Well, yeah. I mean, I know.
If he called himself Peter Parker, would they think he's trying to be Spider-Man?
Uh-huh. I don't know either.
Yeah, it could have, like you said, it could have been a coincidence, but based on the evidence and Cooper's tactics, the FBI speculated that Cooper carefully planned the hijacking and had detailed specific knowledge of aviation, the local terrain, and the 727's capabilities. Cooper chose a seat in the last row of the rear cabin for 3 reasons, according to them. to observe and respond to any action in the front of him, to minimize the possibility of being approached or attacked by someone behind him, and to make himself less conspicuous to the rest of the passengers. To ensure he would not be deliberately supplied with sabotaged equipment also, I guess, Cooper demanded that 4 parachutes to wait, what now? Cooper demanded 4 parachutes to force the assumption that he might compel 1 or more hostages to jump with him, which goes back to our thing, like, why would they do this? Give him a parachute that purposely...
They've put this in their profile, that's why he asked for... So they know that that's why he's asked for these, but they give him a faulty parachute anyway.
So that one was going to be off.
Yeah.
They're left without. That's horrible. So FBI agent Ralph Himmelsbach, or Himmelstwat, according to Lisa, noted Cooper's choice of a bomb instead of other weapons previously used by hijackers thwarted any multi-directional attempts to rush him. Cooper was also careful to avoid leaving evidence. Before he jumped, he demanded...
He left his tie.
He left his tie.
And his limb hair.
Yeah.
How careless.
Which
what just shaving his legs while he's flying.
What good did that do anyway? But anyway, before he jumped, he demanded Mucklow, the stewardess, return to him all the notes either written by him or on his behalf. Now, Mucklow said that she used the last match in his paper matchbook to light one of his cigarettes, and when she attempted to dispose of the empty matchbook, he demanded she return it to him. Although he was methodical in his attempts to retrieve evidence, as mentioned, he was unsuccessful because he did leave his clip-on tie in the seat. Although Cooper was clearly familiar with the 727's capabilities and confidential features, its design was the primary reason that Cooper chose this aircraft. With its aft air stair and the placement of the 3 engines, the 727 was one of the only passenger jets from which a parachute jump could be easily made. Cooper also appeared to be familiar with the 727's typical refueling time.
Yeah, normal refueling time, not the fact that they...
Not they're like, oh, there's something wrong.
Delayed. Let's get 1 truck, let's get 2. Oh, we need another truck. Yeah. Carry on.
Sorry, we're just moaning in the background.
That's okay. Because obviously he knew, he seemed specifically well-informed in the refueling procedures, according to Mucklow. By specifying a 15-degree flap setting, Cooper displayed specific knowledge of aviation tactics and the 727's capabilities. Unlike most commercial jet airliners, the 727 could remain in slow, low-altitude flight without stalling. Cooper's specific flap setting also allowed him to control the 727's airspeed and altitude without entering the cockpit, where Cooper could have been overpowered by the 3 pilots. That would have been First Officer Bill Radizak, who spoke with Cooper on the intercom during the hijacking, told the FBI Cooper displayed a specific knowledge of flying and aircraft in general.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Which really, that was a better profile right there and all that than what they originally came up with.
Right. The FBI, I don't know if I went too far forward here a minute.
44.
Right, yeah. Right, the most significant knowledge Cooper displayed was a feature both secret and unique to the 727. The aft air stair could be operated during the flight, and the single activation switch in the rear of the cabin could not be overridden from the cockpit. Cooper knew how to operate the aft staircase and had clearly planned to use it for his escape. The FBI speculated Cooper knew the Central Intelligence Agency was using 727s to drop agents and supplies into enemy territory during the Vietnam War. Since no situation on a passenger flight would necessitate such an operation, civilian crews were neither informed that aft air stair could be lowered mid-flight, nor were they aware that its operation could not be overridden from the cockpit. So basically, it's something you'd only know if you were in the CIA or something like that, because, yeah. Not saying it was the CIA, but
But
yeah. Cooper appeared to be familiar with parachutes, although his experience level is unknown. The FBI have gone from he's not got a clue what he's doing to he's like an experienced paratrooper. They went all over the place. Mucklow said Cooper appeared to be completely familiar with the parachutes which had been furnished to him, and he told a journalist that Cooper put his parachute on as though... Sorry, she told a journalist. That's Tina, isn't it? I'm confused now with the captain. That's Tina, the air hostess. She told a journalist that he put his parachute on as though he did so every day. Cooper's familiarity with the military-style parachutes he was given has led to speculation that he was a military parachutist and not a civilian skydiver. Larry Carr, who sounds like somebody out of a video game, I don't know why, who led the investigative team from 2006 through to 2009, does not believe that Cooper was a paratrooper. Instead, Carr speculates Cooper had been an Air Force aircraft cargo loader. An aircraft cargo loading assignment would provide him with aviation knowledge and experience. Cargo loaders would have basic jump training, and they would wear emergency parachutes and know how to dispatch items from planes in flight. As a cargo loader, he would be familiar with parachutes, but not necessarily sufficient knowledge to survive the jump he made. Now, that's what he's saying.
I disagree.
At some point between 2006 and 2009, but as we're going to find out, multiple people apparently copycatted, and they all survived.
Yeah, I think he had jump knowledge for sure.
Definitely. The FBI have not remained consistent on this over the years.
Really, Jamie?
I surprised you.
You're joking. Are you joking?
However, and in various different statements and interviews, they have been all over the place. One time they say he's highly intelligent and definitely had military training. Next, they say he doesn't know how to operate a parachute. 1 minute they're saying he do know how to. It changes story to story, time to time. And the next minute they're saying he's of low intellect and he was probably a barman or a waiter. Because he was wearing a suit. Yes, they actually said that.
They said that the fact that he was wearing a suit means that he's probably a barman or a waiter.
Yeah, I don't know how they got that.
Barmen fly.
In 1971, the only people that wore suits were barmen.
And they'd be dressed up as in their uniform, waiting uniform on the plane. Yeah, I don't know. So it's been gone from one extreme to the other, back and forth throughout the years. Since 1971. If you watch a TV show or read a statement, you would get an entirely different pictures and profiles from these people on who they think Dan Cooper was. So it changes completely, as we've said. This is evident in the fact that they assumed he died because he lacked skydiving skills. But again, they couldn't decide if he did or not. And then they think he was military trained in skydiving. What is it, FBI? I mean, you just keep changing your minds. One explanation given to the change in profile came from the fact they had no safety gear on for his jump. But we don't know that because he was carrying a brown paper bag.
Yeah,
remember,
don't forget the little brown paper bag.
We don't know exactly
the exact
I
measurement.
can't remember how big that was. Would that be big enough to put in some of the things?
Yeah, it was like 12 inches by 9 inches.
Like these D rings or whatever.
You have a little pair of gloves in there and some goggles and.
Obviously, it was something.
Beef jerky.
Yeah. Obviously, it was something that
he obviously forgot his beef jerky, Danielle, because he stole it from a shop.
Yeah, he got that later, didn't it?
Oh, that's right.
It's speculated he died during the jump, and they claim that none of the money was never spent, and the evidence to substantiate their claim. Sorry, I've got
the evidence to substantiate the fact that he died during the jump is that none of the money was ever spent.
That's right. Sorry. Yeah. But no evidence has been found to confirm it. No remains, no parachute, nothing. Plus, 5 separate copycats committed similar hijackings in the aftermath of Cooper's hijacking of Flight 305, and they all survived. I was surprised. I knew I'd heard of copycats, but I didn't know there was so many.
They all survived, but he didn't. They're copying them, and they all survived.
Yeah.
Well, this was also, if I'm not mistaken, the only one that was never solved.
Mm-hmm.
So all the other ones, obviously with the copycats and everything, those were solved, but this was the only one that wasn't solved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, or was it? I guess
Or was it?
or was it? So hijacker Martin McNally, he jumped using only a reserve chute without protective gear at night over Indiana. And unlike Cooper, who appeared to be familiar with parachutes, McNally had to be shown how to put on his parachute. Additionally, McNally's pilot increased the airspeed to 320 knots.
Yeah, he was like, "Fuck him! Speed up!
I know.
Speed up!"
It's like, oh my God. That's nearly twice the airspeed of Flight 305 at the time of Cooper's jump. The increased wind speed caused a violent jump for McNally, you think?
Yeah.
The money bag was immediately torn from him, yet he had landed unharmed except for some superficial scratches and bruises. 49-year-old Frederick, I don't know, Hahnemann, I think his name is Hahnemann, hijacked a 727 in Pennsylvania, and he survived after jumping at night into a Honduran jungle. Richard LaPointe hijacked a 727 in Nevada, wearing only trousers or pants here in the U.S., a shirt, and cowboy boots.
Is he the cowboy that was on the plane?
Didn't wear a hat, though. And
these bloody cowboys get everywhere.
He jumped into the freezing January wind over northern Colorado, and he landed in the snow and survived. So it is entirely possible that a man calling himself Dan Cooper could have survived, if indeed he jumped at all, because it is possible the brown paper bag contained a change of clothes and he got off after it landed. The flight crew would not have immediately left the cockpit, and they didn't know if he was still there with his bomb, and they didn't know he at least had a knife on him too. So it is possible he dressed himself as maybe an airport worker or an FBI agent and just walked out of the area. We know the authorities did not approach the place immediately either, so it is possible he didn't jump at all. It's just got to put it out there, right?
Mm-hmm. Somebody's screaming outside. Can you hear that?
I did hear that. I wasn't sure what that was.
Do you mind them filming a DB Cooper program?
Yeah, so there were, like we said, based on the profile and everything else, the FBI, and you have to wonder, did they purposely come up with all these suspects just to confuse everybody? But there are many suspects they came up with.
Yeah, there are many suspects. And we're going to go over some of them now. These are the main contenders. There are a lot more. And some of them are very
strange.
Yeah, there's not a lot to it. There is not a lot to it. And we've lost Jamie. Maybe back, maybe. I don't know. Probably the dog being weird.
I don't think he wanted to be here.
No, he didn't. I don't want to do the suspects. Now, there are many suspects, and we're now on an hour 44. Do we continue, or do you want us to do it tomorrow? Is it going to be too late for everybody?
I won't be available tomorrow.
All right. Do you want us to do it in 2 days?
I won't be available in 2 days.
All right. We'll continue then.
No, but we can continue into next week if it's easy. I mean, we can go on to the suspects next week if you wanted to. Or we can carry on here.
Because we've still got quite a bit to go through all these suspects. Would you rather we just called it a day and come back? Because it's getting on for 2 hours now.
Yeah, I would think let's go to the suspects next week, because there's also going to be in with these suspects a lot of information into a few of them anyway, as to why they were more likely than others.
Yeah.
So
because we once we went to 3 hours. I think this is going to go. If we keep going, it's going to be over 3 hours, and that's too much.
Yeah, I don't want to do that to everybody.
No.
Don't peek ahead. Don't look into this stuff on your own.
Just go looking into it, though. You're not allowed to watch anything on DB Cooper or Dan Cooper or whatever his bloody name was.
We'll get into it next week, though.
We'll continue it next week, so that we're not rushing it, because we really want to go over the suspects properly and give it the time it deserves. So I think we're going to end it there, because it's quite a good place to cut it, because we've done the whole case and went over all the evidence, and we'll just go into all the suspects, and then we'll do our conclusions next Tuesday. We'll see you next Tuesday.
So we'll see you next Tuesday. We'll do a brief recap at the beginning of next show, just like a brief one, and then we'll go into the suspects, and you'll see why some of them actually fit the bill more than others do.
I'll be quite honest. I'm undecided. I might decide by next week, but there's a couple there that could be. There's a couple. I can't decide.
I have the person that I really think it is, and I did some extra research on that as well. So it probably would just do well to wait till next week. So
yeah. So thank you very much for staying with us and not exiting out the emergency exits that were there.
We didn't have any parachutes for anybody to.
We're now going to come into land. So fasten your seatbelts. Make sure your chair's upright, and we will see you next Tuesday. And make sure, go and check out our website. Go and look in our little store at my lovely designs that I drew. And I spent more time than the FBI spent on their pictures. So go and check out what I drew.
Why don't you put that in the comments for them too?
Yeah, I'll put that in the comments for you in a minute. Danielle's going to talk to you while I type.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for joining us once again. We didn't intend on this being a two-parter, but again, we want to give it the attention that it deserves and needs. This is a long-standing case, and so we want to cover it, and give you as much facts as possible. And please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and share.
Tell all your friends.
Tell all your friends and share, and please.
And no cheating. Remember, no cheating. If I find out that any of you have went and watched a DB Cooper program elsewhere, you can watch whatever you like, but you're not allowed to watch DB Cooper because we're going to tell you.
Yeah, we want to tell you. We want to be the ones to bring it to you. So
no spoilers.
We will see you all next Tuesday.
Yes, we will. Love you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye now. I need to find the thing because I wasn't ready for it. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye.
Okay.